This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center, because they're putting on the Tony and Grammy award-winning show Beautiful, the Carole King musical, September 8th through October 15th. If you don't know Carole King, she got her start writing iconic music for R&B groups like the Shirelles and the Drifters before becoming a star herself. She was deep in the songwriting mill in New York City, which was just like a building where people went and, it was just like literally a songwriting factory. It was crazy. And the musical tells her whole story, including all her hit songs like You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Up on the Roof, and So Far Away. Oh, Carole King's amazing. She's fascinating. Tickets are available now at arvadacenter.org. Today on CityCast Denver, Chicano activist and educator Tim Hernandez scores that vacated House District 4 seat, meaning Colorado Dems are taking another step to the left. Plus, the Johnston administration maps out 11 potential sites for safe outdoor spaces, and we wonder what the neighborhood blowback could look like. State politics and Green Chili correspondent Justine Sandoval joins me to dig into all the local stories that matter this week. Today is Tuesday, August 29th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Justine Sandoval, hello.
Hi, Bree.
So right now you are me and I'm Paul.
Oh,
because
I'm glad I'm you. No offense to Paul, but
you get
I'll
to
be
be me
Bree
today.
any day.
Well, producer Paul Curley is out. He's actually he's going to New Mexico, and then he's going to your literal homeland, the San Luis Valley. So he's on the vacation you and I would love to be on.
I love it. Land of enchantment, land of broken down cars on the side of the road. My favorite state.
It's a beautiful
besides
place.
Colorado.
I always say if I lived somewhere else, it would probably be Albuquerque.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's New Mexico. That's what I call it. Like if you go to the valley and then you're like Taos, all that. It's New Mexico.
It's like it's all the same.
We all eat green chili.
Yeah, exactly. The chili is what ties us together.
End the chili war. Unite as a chili nation.
And just respect the hatch.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Whatever
We're
you love.
one Chili Valley.
Just
I think we
it.
need to stop the war.
That's a good point.
Put down your forks.
Because also the lines of the state are just like arbitrary.
They are.
Right?
It was Mexico. And before that, it was native land. So chill out, everyone.
But we're not talking about chili today. We've got an interesting story, but before we get into that, some cool, like very interesting news broke over the weekend, which is that a guest we've had on the show quite a few times, Tim Hernandez, was appointed to House District 4, which was the seat vacated by Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez. She's now our councilperson at large. We had Tim on the show a couple weeks ago to talk about a situation at DPS because he's a teacher, but he was also running for this position, and he kind of only had a couple weeks to get his name out there because he was appointed. He wasn't being voted on. So he's a proud Chicano Northsider, an educator, and someone who was really challenging the way DPS approached educating students of color. But Justine, I think you are the CityCast Denver official state politics and Green Chili correspondent. But you're someone who's worked for the Dems for a long time. What do you think a voice like Tim's means in the bigger picture of the Democratic Party here in Colorado?
I think Tim's voice is very important in this role. He's kind of the last of a young generation of the people who understand the Chicano rights movement that occurred. And, replacing Serena, that's a big thing. She's
a direct descendant.
She's the granddaughter, Corky Gonzalez. So that representation is crucial. But it's kind of weird because the district has changed in the last, 20 years. But I think it's really important to have his voice because he is an educator.
Yes.
And right now, DPS is more segregated than it was when they desegregated schools in the 60s.
And he spoke to that, I think, directly because he was a Northsider who's like, I'm not even seeing myself in my school. Mm-hmm. And when I do see it in my students, it's just something that's not being not only celebrated, but at least like part of the conversation and the decision making and how DPS does things and how it connects with those students.
Yeah, and I think that he is a good voice. I mean, he comes off as radical to some other people, but I think it's still important. And that type of voice and that type of opinion in the State House is crucial. And because I think a lot of people, we really do want to move things forward, like the whole progressive movement, right? Like, let's move things forward fast.
Yes.
So it is good for him to have that voice there. And I think that the thing about Tim is he's open to listening to, opinions and the elders and how we should really go forward. So he's very fiery. And
that's what makes him interesting to me, is like, he's explosive in how he talks about what he cares about.
No, I love that. And as a little North Side girl myself, I got his back. I'm his OG. So I understand that. And I value that, because there were a lot of people that didn't like my fiery North Sideness for a long time. And now it's actually become a brand.
Isn't that interesting?
People love it. I'm like, okay.
You lived through the era when
I was just, people were like, you're ghetto.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm just representing my hood.
I'm just real.
And it became a thing because we needed that representation. And I think he embodies that. So I wish him the best of luck.
I do too. I think it'll be really interesting to see what he does in this new position, because he's done so much just as a teacher.
Yeah.
So congrats, Tim. Okay. So the big story we wanted to talk about as well was the Johnston administration has picked out 11 sites for potential, what they're calling micro communities. So this landed in the news last week. They announced these 11 possible locations for short-term housing options across the city, and they hope to create 1,000 short-term housing units soon. And units is very subjective, right? In some of these cases, it's some old motels. Some of it is just like a site for a safe outdoor space, which we've seen across the city. And so 9 News reported that it includes land owned by the city, land owned by CDOT, Denver Housing Authority, Denver Health, and some private landowners. And again, like I said, these sites include former hotels. There's a spot actually by the Corky Gonzalez Library they're looking at. Justine, what was your first impression of these 11 possible locations?
I think it's great. And it's kind of early to tell if this is going to work, but I give the Johnson administration kudos, because they are really going for this solution. And let's be real, there's not a neighborhood that homelessness impacts more than any other. It is citywide, it's countywide. And so a collaborative approach with places in multiple communities is necessary.
I agree with you. And what I think is interesting, though, is I think about the Park Hill situation. In 2021, there was a church in Park Hill that offered to host this safe outdoor space, and neighbors sued the Colorado Village Collaborative. They sued the Park Hill United Methodist Church, and they sued the lead pastor as well as the city of Denver. Because they said that this space was, quote unquote, unsafe to be near children.
I read the quotes on there. They're like, what am I supposed to tell my children when they see this? And that was crazy to me, because I grew up in the North Side, but my parents are both from Curtis Park on Curtis Street. And we would go down there constantly. And all of Larimer, all of Blake, before any of this, was homeless encampments. So it's not a new thing. We're talking about 1990 through even 2000.
Even earlier, I think, when there was when Larimer was, quote, Skid Row. And I think it's just hard for folks to picture or understand that, just a couple of decades ago, downtown had a lot more encampments. It kind of looked like it does today. It's kind of spread out.
People didn't live there. Yeah. And when you've moved people out or you've moved in, it didn't mean homelessness went away. One of my favorite examples of this is right on Park Avenue there. There's that community garden. That was the unhoused
gathering spot.
And then they put a fence up like it was going to stop it. And then it literally pushed people on the sidewalks. Yeah. And that poor garden looks sad as AF.
I know. It's right next to the rescue mission.
And I'm like, you got people sitting in there and that's the thing. And when I hear people say oh, I don't know what to tell my children, I grew up around that. And you know what my mom told me every time she talked to me about unhoused people in a very compassionate way? My babysitter, Bernice, R.I.P. Bernice, shout out. She watched all the kids in the East Side. We would go every Wednesday to Sacred Heart Church, and there's a food bank there, and Dolores and all the other church ladies. We would give them food and bread, and we would talk about unhoused people, but in a very compassionate way. And I don't understand why so many people don't feel like they can do that. And I think maybe it's because I grew up around it and I just
understand
knew.
it.
Yeah. That
It's part of our city. It's part of part of who we are. These are our neighbors.
They were our neighbors.
Right?
It was never like these people there. And actually a lot of those people were people's relatives and stuff in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And they would like go find them on Christmas and bring them back to their houses. So there was a lot of compassion there that I just think is lacking now. And it has to do with people moving into communities that they didn't grow up in.
Or don't understand what the dynamics are.
No,
you know?
and they're just like, what is this? I'm like, this is humanity.
This is what our neighborhood is like.
And this is not unique to Denver. It's all over.
Yeah.
And so I think that the approach right now with the Johnson administration coming in, it's the right approach.
Yeah. What I find interesting though is like, he's being very cautious because I think he knows the potential for this to become a bunch of lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I do want to say that suit against the church in Park Hill and the pastor in the city was dismissed by a judge. But in this current map, and we'll share a link to it where you can see where these locations are picked out, they're actually not doing as many in your district, in District 9, because you've really been sort of the place where folks have been congregating for a long time. So they're trying to spread it out.
Yeah.
Right?
And I will say I was very happy with that, but not because I care that it's in our neighborhood, but it is not unique to our neighborhood. So I'm glad that they've seen that.
And what I thought, 9 News pointed out, they said some of the locations in the city's wealthiest neighborhoods are still a secret. So they haven't announced those yet.
Yeah.
And Johnson says the list is not finalized and the city's in negotiations with some private landowners about details of these arrangements before they make an announcement.
Yeah. Because they will freak out.
Yes.
Some of these neighborhoods, these like, I don't know what to even call them. NIMBYs, YIMBYs, all these things.
I thought about that too when I was prepping for this conversation. I was like, are these NIMBYs? Are we a NIMBY versus YIMBY conversation?
Nobody knows, because anything I say, I'm suddenly YIMBY or I'm a NIMBY and everyone's mad at me. I'm like, I'm just a Denver person wanting everyone to have a home.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's really I was thinking about like my great grandparents lived in Crestmore. Yeah. I don't imagine Crestmore having a safe outdoor space. I mean, like, you know what I mean?
But these people will freak.
But at the same time, why not? Like, why? And I don't want to say share the burden. I've been thinking about how we talk about this. Share the responsibility that we have.
Thank you. That's a great word, responsibility.
Yeah.
We're all human beings.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad that the Johnston administration is having this conversation at all, because I think this was one of the biggest criticisms of the Hancock administration was he just didn't want to have that conversation.
No, because
encampments, none. No, we're not doing it.
They didn't want to take on that. They didn't want to take on the stigma of them like normalizing it.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a reality.
It's part of our city. That's
like people being upset like, oh, there's poop on the sidewalks. And so I'm like, well, create bathrooms. Like the very essence of our humanity is like everyone's got to poop. Everyone's got to use a restroom.
Rich or poor, we all have to do the same thing.
Trust me, I don't know. If I didn't have a bathroom, it would be wild.
I know.
20 times a day.
I was thinking about this because there's some folks that are sort of have created an encampment in the alley by my house, and they were fighting very loudly the other day while I was working in my office, and I was like feeling myself getting mad and annoyed about it, and then I had to stop and like examine my judgment. And I was talking to my husband about it, and I was like, I am upset because I'm hearing something that normally we don't hear, because if these folks had 4 walls, I wouldn't have to hear their business, just as they don't have to hear when I'm fighting with my husband. So am I getting that mad about them, or should I be getting more mad about the system that created something where folks are forced to live in this space?
Exactly. That's like the trash pickup. People are like,
yes.
I was like, thank you. Yes. You know what? Every week I fill up my trash bin and I roll it out and the city picks it up.
Someone takes care of it.
Yeah. And if I didn't have a home,
Where
I would
does all your
still
trash
create
go?
trash and I wouldn't have anyone pick it up. It's just the most logical solutions. And so that's what I am giving the new administration lots of credit for. Bathrooms,
trash pickup.
basic human needs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it remains to be seen how things will play out in, say, a year. But I would say so far, I think the Johnston administration is really taking this as seriously as he promised he was going to.
It's the number one issue. And it's
For sure.
still like nothing else came to the top when they were talking to people about what the issues are. It was the issue, and it is still the only issue.
Yeah.
So they're tackling it
because it's connected to all these other things. So I also, we had a safe outdoor space in our community at 2nd and Federal, just across from Columbine Steakhouse. I would guarantee you most folks didn't even notice it was there.
No, the tiny house village was up the street from me. No one even realized it was there.
And I would say, not to like make people become touristy looky-loos, but there are current safe outdoor spaces and tiny home villages currently in operation in our city. If you're on the fence about this or you don't know how you feel about it, just like go buy one and you'll maybe not even notice that you've driven right by it.
And all of the neighbors like say like it was fine. It was great. They were great neighbors.
So we would love to know what you think. Would you welcome a safe outdoor space or some sort of temporary housing option, say on your own block?
Oh, heck yeah.
You know, if you're listening, call our SOS yes or no hotline at 720-500-5418 and tell us what you're thinking about with this new approach from the Johnston administration. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, comments and thoughts from you, our listeners. This episode is brought to you by the Colorado Restaurant Association, because the Denver Food and Wine Festival is coming up. So if you love to eat and drink, put it on your calendar for September 6th through the 9th. But really, it's all about the two big events on the Tivoli Quad. I'm talking about the Shake and Break Showdown on September 7th, which is a food truck and cocktail competition where you get to pick the winners. And then on the 9th, the Grand Tasting, an all-you-can-eat and drink showcase of area restaurants with live DJs and a whole lot more. Proceeds benefit the Colorado Restaurant Foundation, which supports local hospitality workers, mental health and emergency assistance grants, and educational scholarships. Learn more about all the Denver Food and Wine Festival events and the cause they benefit, and get your tickets today at denverfoodandwine.com. And we're back. As always, we love to hear from you, our dear listeners, and we've got a few topics that you all have commented on, but I want to start with this conversation around RTD and the airport, which are two things we talk about a lot on this show. Last week on the show, we had John Murray from the Denver Post on to talk about his deep dive reporting on the potential widening of Pena Boulevard, aka the sort of car option to get to the airport. I want to share an email we got from a listener, Cindy S. She wrote, "So I work for a major airline, Delta. I commute from Denver to Salt Lake City, and I have been based in a lot of other large cities across the country, and I'm in and out of DIA anywhere from 1 to 8 times a month since it opened in around 95 or 96. Cindy lives in the Whittier neighborhood and actually bought this house because at the time it was just a few minutes from the light rail. At the beginning, they were supposed to add service from the original D line at Welton and Downing Street. It might be the L line now. That would add they would add a shuttle or something from Blake Street to the A line. Basically, there was, I think, a lot of promises made by RTD, especially in these neighborhoods where they were close to this Welton line. Cindy says they haven't done it and she doesn't believe that they will. She said RTD is kind of a joke overall. She says, I met with my district rep for RTD in 2018 to discuss my feelings about the A-line and how they could improve it. And she says, obviously, she took notes but did nothing. Cindy goes on to explain that she parks at DIA for $36 a month overall. I think she might have an employer program. But she says she does this versus paying up to $21 8 times a month to ride RTD. Justine, you are a girl of the airport.
I am.
What do you think about Cindy's frustrations as a Delta employee?
No, I totally get that. And it has to be even harder as an employee of an airline. One of the reasons why I stuck around the neighborhood is I am 1 block from the A line from Blake Street right there. And it eliminated the fact that I ever had to ask anyone for a ride to the airport anymore. I sneak off constantly.
So it works if it's this
if
is
you
what
are
we talk
close.
about, the proximity.
Yes.
Right? The A line is awesome if you don't have to go to Park and Ride and then take a bus.
It literally only
to get
works
there.
for me because I'm 1 block away, and then the very few people who are also 1 block away from the A line. But I understand that frustration, and there is nothing. The light rail is a great idea that was very poorly executed.
Totally. Because now, I live on the west side, and my husband travels much more than I do. And often I drop him off at Union Station. He takes the A line, and then he'll take it back in, and then he Ubers back home.
Yeah.
Which is not the end of the world, but it can be costly.
It's the commute. Now, and back in the day, it used to be $100.
Like a cab ride.
Before Uber.
Yeah.
If I took a cab from the airport, it was $100 plus. I'd be praying it didn't hit $100 because all I had was $100 bill.
Because none of my friends want to get up at 5
no
a.m.
one
and
is
pick
driving
me
out
up.
there. It's hard because you got to circle around. You're you can't stop.
No.
So I would cab and it would be $100, and even Ubers now are close to that now.
No, totally.
There's mornings when I haven't planned to get on the train. I'm $90 in to take an Uber.
But I also love Cindy's point here really quick before we move on that it's cheaper for her to drive her car and park it as an employee.
A lot of employees.
And she moved to a place to try to be near this is a person actively trying to use public transit, and then it doesn't serve her, and it's cheaper and easier to drive. It's never going to change.
That's a whole dynamic endeavor we need to change. And I think there's a big movement for that right now. It's cheaper to drive. People are going to drive. So we need to create public transit. Right now, it's free.
Right.
But let's
Which is awesome.
keep that going.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. A free train from the airport into the city.
Oh my God, the airport also makes so much money. Can we just fund it?
It's our largest employer of Denver.
If you didn't listen to our episode last week with John Murray, he explains a little bit of how the airport financing works with the transit stuff, and it will infuriate you.
Oh my God. I need to listen, but I'm
should.
sure
it'll drive
I have
you crazy.
an idea already. Just
it's annoying. It's annoying.
It is. I mean, the airport could fund the free train.
Oh, for sure. They choose not to. Okay, so before we go, we got a couple of voicemails from you all of your own recommendations from our visitor's guide we did last week. We did that with you, Justine. Yeah. You helped us craft this visitor's guide of where we would take people if they came to visit us in Denver. So we're going to hear a couple of voicemails.
Hello, this is Lauren from the Capitol Hill neighborhood, calling in regard to the places that you would go if you were having a visitor. Some of the ones that I would recommend, and I'm doing a bar crawl on Friday to them, are going to be Squire Lounge is a big one. Nob Hill is one that's a mainstay. And then also Titan, want to throw that in there because the next door neighbor, PZA, is fantastic. And we are doing a bar crawl down Colfax at 6:30. We're going to catch 15 from Cleveland Place from Broadway. So if anyone is interested in seeing these places, they should definitely check that out. Thank you for everything you do, and big fan of the show. Bye.
Hi, guys. It's Jared, and I actually live in Fort Collins, and I just enjoyed listening to your 36 Hours in Denver episode. But I would add a few things. I would add Denver Biscuit Company. Maybe that's a little basic for you, or maybe not quirky enough or something. But I don't know. I really love that place, especially for a quick breakfast after a hangover. Maybe even call in an order and bring it back to wherever your guest is staying. The other place that I think is really neat in Denver is Bull and Bush Brewing. Get like a steak or something there. It's just such a funky building. It's old. They've been there forever, and the people who work there are really awesome. The other one would be Tacos de Mexico for a quick casual lunch. That place is awesome too. So, I don't know. I live in Fort Collins. Maybe I don't know Denver as well as some people. but those are the places that stand out to me.
Okay, first of all, great recommendations all around from both of these folks. Jared, don't talk yourself down so much. I am game for like literally everything you said, but I love Squire, Nob Hill. I mean, those are hardcore Colfax bars. If your friend can hang there, they're cool.
Yeah, the Squire's my favorite bar besides the Chicks Club. But, I mean, they have that great mural of all of Colfax around the edge.
So good.
Wu-Tang Wednesdays, that was the OG spot.
Oh, I know. I think about all the drink specials when they're talking about stuff. Tight End is another new great bar, formerly where Streets of London was. If you know that area, Scooter Liquors right next to it, which I named my first cat after, Scooter.
Oh,
I know, it's so cute. But Denver Biscuit Company, I'm down. I have to say, it's one of my easier brunch places because like you said, you can grab something to go and take it back, but like I don't know, the wait there usually isn't too bad, and
you get to drink your coffee while you're waiting. They have like a whole coffee bar.
You've got your coffee here right here from Denver Biscuit
Company. I went to Denver Biscuit Co. this morning for the Franklin with the veggie gravy.
I think it's a great I get the Ellsworth, which has got like mustard and honey. Oh, it's so good. But I just think it's a great easy, if you don't want to whole to do for brunch, this is a real easy spot. And then he brought up Bullenbush. That's my part of town. That's where I grew up. I grew up a couple blocks from Bullenbush. It is a very weird building, as he says. It's supposed to look like an English pub. So the best part is you walk in and it is dank and dark in there. It'll be a Tuesday afternoon and you are like, oh, I am in a bar. Food is great. They have green chili. Their French onion soup is insane. And they have a great patio. If you're looking for a spot to watch a game of any kind, they have an awesome enclosed patio with a ton of TVs. It's a good spot. So I love these additions. You can keep them coming because I think we could probably amend our visitor's guide.
Totally.
And like
Taco de Mexico.
I forgot
about that. I don't know. I forgot. It's delicious.
I know, but like we didn't do anything on Santa Fe.
Yeah, I would have been like, go to Swift's for breakfast.
Oh my God, that's Kaylin's favorite spot.
I went to Swift's and I got like my ham and eggs. It's cheaper than going to McDonald's in a combo now. It's like $11.
Yeah.
It's like $9.
Swift's is also the secret breakfast place if you don't want to do a crazy brunch.
Yeah.
You could sneak in there. It's kind of like a diner.
$10 steak and eggs. Get out.
Greasy. So good. But if you have any thoughts on our visitor's guide or any of our episodes, really, you can call our All Denver All the Time hotline at 720-500-5418. And we love to hear from you. Justine, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell the owners of the Denver Biscuit Company about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.